Hello there, my name's David Hurrian and I'm going to take you through some of my seed sowing basics that will make sure that your seeds germinate really reliably to ensure that you get your best gardening results. So the first thing I want to say is that compost, when it comes out of the bag, particularly if you've stored your compost outdoors, could be quite cold. So bring the compost indoors, certainly overnight before you sow the next day, to bring the compost up to room temperature so it doesn't shock the seeds, because if they get a cold shock, they won't germinate. The next thing to say is that when you buy the compost, it'll have been stored in bags and it will have become compacted in those bags because others will have been stacked on top of it. So we need to get rid of some of those lumps so that we get a nice even fill in the pots and seed trays so that you get good even germination. Now you can do this by rubbing down the compost between your hands. That's quite successful. Or what I like to do is to sieve it through this old sieve of mine. So this is quite a coarse sieve. It's not fine like a kitchen sieve. And it will take out the big lumps, but it will leave nice fine compost afterwards. So that's that sieved. You can see that it's left behind quite a lot of fibrous material. That can just go on the compost or out on the garden soil to rot down. If those big lumps got into your seed trays or your pots, you'd find that they would take up a lot more moisture and also block the development of the seedlings. So that's my compost sieved through. It's really nice and fibrous, almost like the texture of granulated sugar. The only thing is though that this, when it's used to fill your pots and containers, can be quite difficult to guess whether it's too wet or too dry whilst you're trying to germinate the seeds. So what I like to try and do is open up the structure of that compost even more so that it's free draining, so that I can water it every day if necessary to make sure that there's enough moisture in that compost to allow for germination. Now you can do this in a couple of ways. One is by adding some coarse horticultural grit if you've got any, or this material. Now this is perlite, it's not vermiculite. This is perlite, which is expanded volcanic rock that's been heated, and that, when mixed into the compost, will hold open the structure and make it really well drained. The other material you might find is vermiculite. Now vermiculite isn't used for mixing into the compost because that actually holds on to moisture and that wouldn't be what you would want. So I'm going to mix the perlite in with my compost using a pot as a measure by volume. I'm going to use 4 pots full of compost. By volume with 1 pot of perlite, and you'll have the perfect open free draining compost that you can then sow any seeds into and be surer of success. So that's all there is to it really. I've gone through and warmed my compost before I start. I've sieved out all the big lumps to make sure that it's nice and open and friable, and then I've mixed some extra drainage material in it to make this beautiful material that's ready to sow my seeds. And I'll be doing that in my other videos. So if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and make sure that you visit my website where you'll find more hints and tips to help you make this your best gardening year ever.